Hey guys, sorry I am not here today. I've got a meeting at my son's school. So what I'm going to do is I figured instead of having you guys sit around and suffer through bad videos with goofy people talking about all sorts of things, you sit through a bad video with your math teacher. So what I want to do first is I'm going to cover some stuff, chat about what's on your reality check, what homework's going to be due tomorrow, and then we'll go through some things off your homework, and then the rest of the time will be yours to work. So reality check. Reality check. Is going to cover sections 7.3, which is the sum and difference identities. So that's the old cosine of a plus b, sine of a plus b. And then 7.4 is the double angles and half angles. Oops. Okay, so sine of 2 theta, cosine of 1/2 x, etc. Yes, actually I'll better write this down so you can get the emphasis. Yes, formulas need to be memorized. I know this comes as a shock because I told you this 2 weeks ago and I've said it every day since. However, just to drive that point home, they need to be memorized. Period. Done. End of story. Okay. In terms of what I'm going to collect for homework, homework to be collected. All right, so homework to be collected for tomorrow will be 7.4 day 1 to 7.5. So that is going to be pages, essentially page 681, 683, and then 697. Okay, the worksheet that you will be getting today is more on one of those more for your own good type of thing. I'm very tempted to make it required, but I will not. But those are going to be things that are going to be very similar to what you're going to see on your reality check. All right, so a couple things from yesterday. First of all, I need to correct a mistake. I know Mr. Hayes made a mistake. It's a shock. When we're talking about which quadrants we're using, okay, so when we're doing inverses, we had talked about how sine worked over here. So sine was going to be in terms of quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. Because it had to be 2 consecutive quadrants. Quadrant 1 had to be used. So quadrant 4 is used because that's where sine is negative. Okay, sine's positive and negative here. Cosine, no surprise, is in quadrant 1 because everything has to have quadrant 1 for their positive section. Why? That's the way the math gods said so. And quadrant 2 is the other place where cosine is negative, so that's a consecutive angle. So it's quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. And yesterday I mistakenly said tangent was in quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. It is actually, if you check in the back of the book on some of these, it's actually quadrant 1 and quadrant 4, and that's where my mistake came. So mark the day on your calendar. Okay, so positive tangents end up in quadrant 1, negative tangents end up in quadrant 4. And when you do negative values here, you have to do negative radians or negative degrees because you have to go through 2 consecutive, you have to go through the next angle. If I was going around, let's say if I had, for example, sine, inverse sine of a negative root 2 over 2. On your unit circle, you would say, oh, well, that is at 315 degrees. The only problem is I cannot, I get up to here and sine doesn't exist. We're not using quadrant 2 and quadrant 3. We can't go that way, so that doesn't work. So we have to come backwards. And when we go backwards, we go counterclockwise, or excuse me, clockwise. That means it's a negative angle. So this, you would see as 315 degrees. We have to make it a negative 45 degrees. And again, you can either do that by saying, wow, look, I'm going backwards 45 degrees, or you can say I'm at 315 minus 360. Okay. So on problems, section 7.5, 13 on the every other odds. For 13 through 33, you really shouldn't need to use a calculator because you've got your unit circle in play. So when you hit something like 17, that'd be a good example. You have y is equal to the inverse sine of -1. Okay, on your unit circle, remember cosine, sine. So sine is your y value. That means that sine would be down here. This is -1. To get there, you would normally say 270. We have to backtrack and go this direction. So that is going to be a -90 degrees. Or, and your book is preferring all of this part to be in radians, though they don't say that explicitly in the directions, would be -pi/2. If you see something such as any problem such as, let's see, 17, let's say 29, because that's cosecant. I believe you have to do this one. If not, just follow along, put this in your notes. Inverse cosecant of -2. Okay, you can rewrite that. What is the reciprocal of cosecant? The reciprocal of cosecant is sine, so the reciprocal of inverse cosecant is going to be inverse sine. Take the reciprocal of -2, that would be -1/2. So you do the inverse sine of a -1/2. Okay, so 35 on, you need to go use your calculator. Well, 35, I take that back, that you're going to use degree measurement, so that's the same sort of thing. 47 on, you're going to use your calculator, so you're just going to use inverse cosine, get inverse sine from that. Make sure that you're in the right mode, degree or radians for that. When we hit 77 through 92, I want to do a couple of off of those just to be safe. So let's take a look at 79 would be a good one. Okay, 79. You've got cosine of the inverse tangent of -2. Okay, this, now remember, this right here is an angle. So first step one, actually we're going to say 1A. Draw your triangle. Okay, so this triangle here is in quadrant 4, because tangent is negative in quadrant 4. Draw this out here, draw this out here. I've got opposite, adjacent. The 2 is going to be negative since that's going down. And over here, it's going to be a square root of 5, Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so then, and that's going to be part 1b, you're going to finish out find missing part, find missing side. And right here is the angle that we're talking about. So now I'm going to ask, what's the cosine of that angle? The cosine of that angle is, again, remember, adjacent over hypotenuse, and so that's going to be 1 over root 5. So rationalize it, that is going to be root 5 over 5. And that is your answer. Let's take a look at problem, how about 90? Because 90 would be fun. Actually, I take that back. Let's take a look at problem 81. Now, this one says sine of 2 tangent, the inverse tangent of 12/5. Now, again, this is an angle, which means that this, for all intents and purposes, is sine of 2a. So you're going to use your double angle formula. Very helpful since you're having a test on this tomorrow. So it's going to be sine, remember the formula for sine of 2a is going to be 2 sine a cosine a. So again, you need to draw your triangle. Tangent is positive in quadrant 1. Draw your triangle out. Opposite, adjacent. Hypotenuse then is going to be, so that's step 1a. Step 2 is going to be fill in the side. Oh, by the way, step 2 up here. Step 2, find appropriate trig function. Appropriate. Okay, so in this case, sine is going to be opposite over adjacent, so that's 12/13. Cosine is going to be 5/13. So now you're just going to plug and go. So you've got 2 times 12/13 times 5/13. So that would end up being, you have a 169 on the bottom, 13 times 13 across the top, 2 times 12 is 24, times 5 is 120. And that, my friends, is your final answer. And you're going to do something similar for problems. Obviously, press pause if you need to. You're going to do something similar for problem like number 90. Only thing with number 90 is that you got 2 triangles to worry about because we've got 2 different angles. 90 says, what's its cosine of the inverse sine of 3/5 plus the inverse cosine of 5/13? And again, notice, oh look, this isn't, and this is hard, sometimes hard to do until you get used to it. Inverse trig functions are angles. So this is cosine of an angle, let's call it A, and an angle, let's call it B. Cosine of A plus B, cosine A, cosine B, minus sine A, sine B. If you're asking yourself why, look at your trig identities and say, oh, that's the formula for the sum of 2 angles. So again, give yourself 2 triangles. Here, sine is positive in quadrant 1. You're drawing yourself a little triangle. Sine is opposite over adjacent, so 3 and 5. 1a, find the missing part, that would be 4. We're going to do the same thing for the other triangle. This angle, cosine is also positive, so that means it's in quadrant 1. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Step 1b, find the missing side, that would be 12. And now you're just going to go up here and fill in the missing parts. Cosine of A, and again, I would label these down here just to be abundantly clear where you're pulling stuff from. Cosine A is going to be 4/5, so 4 over 5, times cosine of B, which is 5/13, minus sine of A, which would be 3/5, over sine, or times sine of B, which is 12/13. And then at this point, you're just going to do the math. So you're going to come up with your denominator of 65. And then you get 20 minus 36. So your answer is going to be a negative 16 over 65. Okay? And that's your answer. And that should get you, hopefully, on the right track with 7.5. The substitute is going to be passing out a half sheet of paper. The half sheet of paper contains problems from similar to 7.3, 7.4, 7.5. In fact, let me call it up to be safe. Let's see, right there. All right. So here, notice, these first ones here cover a whole gamut of stuff. So like this is going to be a sum or difference one. This is a sum or difference one. This is very similar to the second part of your homework assignment from last night. Sum or difference, homework problem from last night. How do I know C and E are from the homework? You've got inverses. Okay, everything else, if it doesn't have an inverse, is either going to be, you have to ask yourself, is it a sum of 2 angles, the difference of 2 angles, the double of a single angle, or half of a single angle? Okay. Now, 2 is a little different than what we've done in the past. Only reason being is that you're keeping the same set of given for all 5 of these problems. Okay, so they're telling you the sine of alpha is 1/3. Alpha is going to be in a particular quadrant bounded by pi over 2 and pi. Cosine of B, same sort of thing. With that all being said, draw out your triangles and then find cosine of alpha, sine of beta, cosine of 2 alpha, cosine of alpha plus beta. And so, you know, this is obviously double angle, sum of 2 angles, half angles. A and B are pretty much there just to kind of help give you a push. But outside of that, I think it's pretty straightforward. These are going to be kind of representative things that you will see later or on your reality check tomorrow. I should be back before the end of the day. I'm going to try to get answer key to this up online so you can double check your work as well. Again, this is not going to be due. However, if you can go through and do this and understand what's going on, you will be in very good shape for your reality check tomorrow. Okay? Two things. Yes, you will have a reality check tomorrow. That's not changing. Yes, you're expected to know and memorize all of the formulas. Those will not be given to you. Okay? No amount of whining and complaining and gnashing of teeth, wearing of sackcloths, etc., will change that. So anyway, with all of that, enjoy the rest of the period. Obviously, talk with each other. If you are very nice to the sub, maybe they'll replay this again if you want to see certain parts. And outside of that, I will see you tomorrow, or text me if you got questions later on after school, or call you too.